Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating economics paper, one that totally flips the script on how we think about competition between countries for tax revenue. This work by Pedro Lagis Gaia is, well, it's going to challenge a lot of what you probably learned in your intro econ classes. So let's get right into it. All right, let's start with a puzzle, a question that seems to defy all logic. Why would you, or anyone for that matter, ever choose to pack up and move to a country where you know you're going to pay more in taxes? I mean, it sounds completely backward, doesn't it? But stick with me because the answer reveals something fundamental about economics. Okay, so before we can really appreciate the new idea in this paper, we've got to cover the classic theory. For decades, the textbook story of tax competition has been all about this idea of a race to the bottom. And the logic there is, pretty simple. If capital and skilled people can move around easily, countries have to compete for them. And how do they compete? Well, they cut tax rates. It turns into this global bidding war to see who can offer the lowest number, with the fear always being that governments will eventually run out of money for public services. So in this classic model, your choice looks something like this. You've got country A, where the official tax rate might be high, but there's a well-known loophole that gives you a nice, low effective rate. We'll call that tau L. And then there's country B, which is totally straightforward with a simple, flat tax, tau B. In this world, your decision is just basic arithmetic. You'd only move to country B if its tax rate is less than or equal to what you're actually paying in country A. It's a price war, plain and simple. But this is where the paper makes its move. It asks one seemingly simple question that changes the entire game. What if that convenient loophole you're using in country A isn't permanent? What if it's a moving target? And that's the core idea here. In many of these complex tax systems, the loopholes and the tax planning strategies, well, they aren't written in stone. A new government can come in and close them, regulators can reinterpret the rules, a court case can change everything overnight. Your low tax rate is suddenly not guaranteed. You constantly have to adapt just to stay ahead. So now, your life in country A isn't just about paying that low tax rate. No, you're also dealing with the constant chaos of rule changes, a volatility that the model calls lambda. And every time the target moves, you have to spend money to adapt. That's a real financial hit. A switching cost we'll call K. We're talking about huge fees for lawyers and accountants scrambling to find the next legal strategy. This isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a serious recurring cost. So, how do all these hidden costs of chaos flip the script on your decision? Well, it turns out you can actually put a number on it. You can calculate the price of stability. Now, don't let the formula here intimidate you because the concept behind it is incredibly intuitive and powerful. This equation gives us the exact tipping point. Your reservation tax rate, that's the absolute max you'd be willing to pay in the stable country B, is the low rate you were paying in country A plus a new term. And this new term is basically an instability penalty. The more volatile the rules are and the more it costs you to adapt, the bigger this penalty gets. It's the price you have to pay for all that headache and uncertainty. And this brings the whole idea to life. Let's just put some numbers to it. Say your effective tax rate in chaotic country A is 10%, but you expect to spend another 5% of your income each year on accountants and lawyers just to keep up. Your true cost is 15%. All of a sudden, country B's simple, stable 12% tax rate doesn't just look good, it looks like a bargain. This is what the paper calls the stability premium. Country B can actually charge a higher tax rate and still be the cheaper, better option. So the big takeaway here is that stability isn't just some vague, nice-to-have thing. It's a real, quantifiable economic asset. A country can literally compete by selling certainty. Predictability becomes a premium product in the global marketplace. Okay, but the analysis doesn't stop there. It gets even more interesting when we start to think about this not just as a choice for individuals, but as a strategic game, a chess match between the two countries themselves. So think about this for a second. The model suggests that country A might actually choose to make its own tax system more complicated and volatile. I mean, why in the world would a government do that? Well, maybe it's a way to extract more revenue from people who can't easily leave. But here's the kicker, the unintended consequence. Every time country A cranks up the dial on instability, it accidentally gives country B more power. The more chaotic country A becomes, the higher that stability premium gets, which means the higher country B can set its own tax rate without scaring anyone away. This leads to a fascinating and kind of cynical concept the paper calls taxing by instability. Country A basically decides to use complexity itself as a kind of shadow tax on its captive population, all while knowing and accepting that this very strategy will push its most productive people right into the arms of its stable competitor. So the big question becomes, is this strategy of being a chaotic, moving target actually a good idea in the long run? The paper digs into this, and the answer is a pretty resounding no. If you play this out over time, the strategy completely backfires. In the short term, sure, Country A might squeeze out some extra cash. But over the years, the most productive people, the innovators, they get tired of the game, and they leave. They go to Country B, where they can focus on building things instead of calling their accountant. The result? Country A's tax base shrinks and its economy stagnates, while Country B thrives on a wave of new talent and capital. So, when you zoom all the way out, the model's conclusion is really powerful. In the long-term competition for people and prosperity, stability isn't just an option, it's the winning strategy. It's the lighthouse that guides smart money and talent safely through the storm of global uncertainty. All right, so let's wrap up and make sure we've got the key takeaways. There are really 3 big ideas from this paper. First, the moving target effect. Chaos has hidden costs. Second, the stability premium. Certainty is a product that countries can sell. And third, and this one's a bit of a mind-bender, your rival's chaos can actually become your own competitive advantage. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've just spent this whole time talking about how stability is a premium good when it comes to tax policy, but it really makes you wonder, where else is a moving target, that constant state of chaos and unpredictability, costing us way more than we realize in ways we haven't even begun to measure? That's a question we're thinking about.